Hey, most gun owners don't do anything to protect their self-defense rights. You can change that and become a member of San Diego County Gun Owners. We make activism easy, so you need to join today. Go to sdcgo.org/join and sign up to be a member today, because together we will win.
Okay, in the studio we have attorney Gary Gibson. We're going to talk to Gary further in the show, but I'm so happy to have you here, Gary. Thank you so much. This is your mic, by the way.
By the way, you have to pay him when you say attorney. You're just supposed to say Gary, and it would have been free.
It would have been free? Oh, well, he can put it on my tab.
Today. I got a deal with San Diego County Gun Owners.
There you go. There's,
I like the way
there's
this
so much I owe Gary. Okay, let's see. We got a bunch of cool stuff. Gun Prom tickets on sale. Gun Prom, it's going to happen in October. We need you to buy your tickets ASAP right now. They are, let's see, go to gunprom.com. It is casino night. So even if you've gone to all the other Gun Proms, this is a whole different thing. It's Gun Prom version 2.0. Get the VIP speakeasy tickets. Great for businesses. Treat your clients to an exceptional night, and with fun and great people and for a great cause. So you're going to get to play all your fun Vegas games. You're still going to be able to win guns depending on how good you do at the tables. And you're still going to have some food, past appetizers, dessert, coffee, cash bar, and all kinds of movers and shakers. It's going to be a great night. So please go to gunprom.com and buy your tickets for Gun Prom today. Open range day at private shooting area. It's a private shooting area in Escondido. That's the day before the San Diego Gun Show. You can get tickets at gunownersradio.com. Click on the button for the gun show and get tickets before prices go up on May 20th. You could win great prizes, including a chest rig from Roan Industries, Seal One, Core Essentials, Bole, iPro, and more. All kinds of cool stuff. If you don't have guns or ammo, you can still go. There will be guns to try, and Fallbrook Guns will have ammo and ear and eye protection, all that you can try and purchase. And don't forget to go to the gun show. You can enter to win the grand prize, a Springfield XD, generously donated by a San Diego County Gun Owners member. So check that out. That's the first weekend of June. Of course, the private gun area, the open gun area day is coming up on May 31st, the Friday before the gun show. So check that out. Okay, so this is the Q&A section. People write in and we answer your questions. Let's see.
Oh, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, let's see which one we want to do first. Okay, I got an email. Someone asked, we put out an email talking about our Rena case. The Rena case is to help get rid of the pistol roster, which we all hate. And he asked, why file a lawsuit that's already been filed? And then they referenced the other one, the Boland case. Mm-hmm. Good question. We actually filed our case 2 years before they filed theirs. Oh. So we filed ours first, 2 years prior. But it's actually a really good question as to why would two cases be filed that are so similar? There's a lot of reasons for that, and there's a lot more cooperation than people probably think that there is. In fact, I got to tell you, it drives me crazy when I see people. It's like this is my favorite football team, and every other football team is the enemy. We're not enemies here.
Right.
Well, all the organizations, we all work together. So nobody's doing anything bad. We're all fighting for your Second Amendment rights. There's a lot of cooperation going on. There's a lot of hand holding and kumbaya and hey, let's all get this done. So a couple of reasons that somebody might file a lawsuit that's similar to another lawsuit is, one, they'll do it in a different area, so they'll get a different set of judges.
So there is a benefit to doing it.
Potentially, could be. So if a lawsuit's filed and they get a bad judge, then file a similar lawsuit in a different area and they might get a good judge. Gotcha. It's also crazy to me when I hear gun owners, the Ninth Circuit Court or Ninth Circuits, they're all a bunch of jerks. You're never going to get any kind of anything good. It's never going to happen. And guns, blah 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 blah. Excuse me. And then when a bad law is passed, the first thing they want to do is sue. Okay, well, where do you think we're going to do that?
Yeah,
That's in the Ninth Circuit, So it's a battle, but you got to understand. But there's a bunch of different reasons you might file. There are different angles. There's different ways to skin a cat. So it might be going after the same law, but a different lawsuit may be attacking it from a different angle. The other thing is, if it's a law as big as SB2, there are so many. We're going to talk about that with Gary later on. There are so many things to SB2 that maybe one group will file to get rid of this, one group will file to get rid of that, and Gary's actually going to talk about a case that has to do with SB2. So there are a lot of reasons why similar cases may be filed, at the same time at different times. So yeah. Somebody asked, can we still carry? Can we still carry? Now, SB2 passed, but the short answer is yes, you can still carry. Thanks to a couple of different lawsuits, there is an injunction on the section of SB2 that expanded the sensitive areas. So they expanded sensitive areas to really every place outside of your home. There's an injunction on that. It's still being fought in court. No changes, no updates. One of the best places to find updates, if you're wondering what's going on, is you go to sdcgo.org/lawsuits. There's all our lawsuits, our amicus briefs, everything that we've done. You can click on them, find out what lawsuits we're a part of and have been filed, and you can find out exactly what's going on.
Updates.
Right. Exactly. Let's see. What's another question here?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I haven't got a phone.
Let me look.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask Gary a question?
Please
Sure,
do.
You got $1?
I want to know, what's the difference between an attorney and a lawyer?
Wait, is this a joke? Or
No,
is this a
I'm
real...
dead serious. I want
That's
to know.
not Sam.
Because I want to know. There's got to be a difference between the two terms, because some people prefer attorneys, some people the term for the lawyers.
Good question.
So I got to know.
What's the difference?
It's not as extensive as the difference between a proctologist and a podiatrist. But there's
a lot of similarities.
But there's not much difference between an attorney and a lawyer. If you're an attorney, you are a lawyer. If you're a lawyer, you're almost certainly an attorney. And so the crossover, I don't even know what the differences would be. Other than if someone's calling themselves an attorney, you're definitely paying a couple $100 more per hour than somebody's calling themselves a lawyer.
Ah, I see. Okay.
You think it's
Attorney's
schooling?
a little bit more official.
Or do you think it's schooling?
The attorney's a little more official.
You think it's schooling?
Same.
One
I think
goes
it's
to
schooling.
college,
Yeah.
a little bit more college than the next guy.
No, you guys have the same degree.
I thought it was kind of similar to a custodian,
different places.
a custodian and a janitor, because they're the same terms. I don't know why we call one custodian, one janitor, but whatever. So, I should turn your
it's
mic
the
on.
beauty
Sorry
of
about
it.
that. I know, that was my fault.
Yeah,
Beauty of English
I didn't realize Alicia
I
was
knew
in
somebody
there.
was going to go to Urban Dictionary and beat me to it.
That would be this is
That would
on
be
air. I know
Alicia.
that we can use those words. I did look. I'm curious if this is correct. It says a lawyer typically refers to someone who has obtained a legal education but may not be licensed to represent clients in court. Conversely, an attorney is a licensed professional who not only has completed legal education but has passed the bar examination, allowing them to represent clients in legal proceedings within the state they are in.
So you got a guy who's got a law degree, but he's like the CEO of a company or something like that. He's not using it as to practice law. He's a lawyer, but he's not necessarily an attorney because he's not representing. What do you think? Gary?
If somebody
Maybe.
tells me they're a lawyer, I usually think that they can practice in court. If somebody said, a lot of people tell me I've got law degrees, but I didn't pass the bar. Well, that clears it up.
All right. Well, we're going to talk more to Gary about all kinds of cool stuff, including something that he's working on with SB2. But next, we're going to talk about the media, a story that was done that has to do with San Diego County gun owners. We were quoted anyway.
Hey, if you ever have legal matters that involves firearms, you need a California best firearms lawyer, and that means John Dillon. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws, so put his number on your phone right now, 760-642-7150. That's John Dillon's California firearm lawyer, 760-642-7150. Put his number on your phone right this minute.
Okay, special announcement. Actor and comedian Mark Christopher Lawrence will be a featured speaker at the Gun Owners Symposium. That's at the Gun Show at the first weekend of the month in June. Known as Big Mike on NBC TV's Chuck, He was in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. He's worked with Sinbad, Jerry Seinfeld, and Rodney Dangerfield. And he's been nominated for 2 Emmys and received the San Diego Critics Circle's Craig Knoll Award for Outstanding Actor of the Year. And he's a gun guy. He loves sporting clays. He's a competitive shooter. We're going to interview him at the symposium. That includes a Q&A section. So what questions do you think we should ask? Send them in. Email them to info@gunownersradio.com. Fantastic. Welcome, comedian Mark Christopher Lawrence. Looking forward to having you at the symposium. So what we're talking about is culture and media. Why is it important for us to change culture? Why not just work on, lawsuits and getting people elected? And there was a really kind of an interesting article, kind of an unusual and interesting article that first appeared in the LA Times. And I remember getting interviewed. It was actually a while back, so it took him a while to write this article. And it was a good conversation, though. The author from LA Times had some really good questions, was very interested in writing a good article. And after about a 2-hour conversation, this is my contribution to the article. Okay, ready? Michael Schwartz, executive director of the San Diego County Gun Owners Political Action Committee, said that while he's supportive of Nguyen's mission, he thinks his assessment of the traditional gun owner leans too heavily on tropes. Quote, the stereotype is gone. Firearms as a hobby are very common in the Asian community and the Hispanic community, and that's not who we think of, Schwartz said. Growing up, a gun owner was somebody out of Duck Dynasty. That's my whole contribution. After 2 hours of conversation.
That's what they pulled.
That's what they pulled, which is fine. And that's actually a really good quote for this story. The story was about a guy who lived in L.A. In fact, the name of the story is L.A. Progressive Shooters at Gun Space for People Sick of American Gun Culture. And it starts off, I'll read just a little bit of it. At least 2 hours, a very long article, so I'm just going to read a little bit. At least 2 hours have gone by in the Pistol 101 class, and no student has fired a bullet or even picked up a gun. This isn't a lesson for anyone eager to pull the trigger. Tom Nguyen's teaching style is patient, aimed at demystifying an object many of his students have spent their lives fearing, even hating. Something of a leftist firearms whisperer, Nguyen pokes fun at stereotypical American gun culture, mocking, quote, alpha male behavior, and the John Wick film franchise with its video game levels of violence. Owning a gun doesn't have to define your personality, he preaches, and it doesn't mean you have to seek conflict. I think that's a great message. I don't know who this guy is. We actually posted this on our Facebook page, and I guess he's up in LA and he's an instructor. But a lot of people, a lot of the folks who commented on Facebook and Instagram have heard of him, and he seems to be a little bit of a controversial figure. I didn't think anything in this story was completely out of hand. I thought that he basically said, hey, look, things are different. I mean, you got to understand, LA is a very different place. California is a very different place. LA is a very different place from California. If you remove LA from California, California's demographics change considerably. But even, California is just about its own little state. Did you know that there are more Republicans in LA County than there are in San Diego, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Orange County combined?
Republicans?
Yeah.
Are they sleeping?
No. It's such a big county that they're still dwarfed by the amount of Democrats.
Wow.
But it's a huge, diverse county. So this guy's saying, hey, look, the one thing I think they're throwing around the term gun culture a little too, they're about 15, 20 years late. Maybe back in the 70s, what they're describing as gun culture is gun culture, but these days it's not. It's just not. I don't know. What do you think? How would you describe gun culture? Is there even gun culture anymore?
I don't think there's gun culture anywhere anymore. I think just look at your program, Not Me SD.
Yeah.
I mean, gun culture is women that want to be empowered by understanding how to use firearms. Gun cultures are single moms that want to have a gun in their home because they feel unsafe. And it is a trope of the long-haired white man from the South is
right.
the gun culture. And certainly in California, that's not the gun culture anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I said Duck Dynasty. I don't think it was a pejorative, but I think it was that was an accurate portrayal of what people used to think of when they thought of gun culture. And I don't know, it might even go so far to say that is what gun culture was back in the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. But in the 80s, things started to change, and man, in the 2000s, it really took off.
Well, gun culture in the 70s and the 60s was predominantly white dudes. That's not true anymore.
Living in Kentucky.
It's multicultural. It is women and men.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Multiracial.
I would even say that a lot of what he may be doing today is they're taking cultures that happen to be into guns and calling it gun culture. Like, for example, there's kind of a post 9/11 veteran culture. People that served after 9/11 or served, after 9/11. Went into the military, enjoy their firearms, and there is a very particular culture, the post 9/11 veteran culture. They're into guns, but that doesn't define gun culture. That is a small percentage of people who own firearms.
Well, I think people
that's one example. There's many different pieces.
But I think people that own guns today, they're not owning them because they're gun enthusiasts. They're owning them to protect themselves and their family.
I think that's so. In 1990, somewhere around 1990, Florida became a shall issue CCW state. Mm-hmm. I think that kicked off the end of what that stereotypical gun culture, because people started buying a gun for a whole different reason.
Right.
Right. That, Glocks became more popular. They started copying Glocks. Revolvers died. People started, looking for guns they could carry for self-defense. Right. And the hunting piece slowly started disappearing. Or even if it didn't start, it definitely has disappeared a little bit. But even if it stayed the same, a higher percentage of people carrying for self-defense was taking over gun culture.
And people were going into a gun store and says, I want to be protected. What should I buy? Not, hey, can you show me a da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? That's not the case, because they don't even do the research. They just go in, you're a gun store, what can you sell me that I'll protect myself and my family?
Yeah, there's this old, I don't know if it's a joke, but there was this old saying, I guess, that there are three kinds of gun owners. There's shooters, hunters, and collectors. Mm-hmm. And shooters don't hunt or collect. Collectors don't hunt or shoot. And hunters don't collect or shoot.
You know what? I think that's not a joke.
I think that's pretty accurate.
I think that's pretty accurate.
It was kind of, there's I grew up, a little bit in Wisconsin, and it really kind of was there's kind of a joke about deer hunters. Their gun stays in the closet for like 50 weeks out of the year
until they got a license,
and then they go zero it in, a week before hunting season, and then they go, shoot one shot, and they got their doe.
Look at Jeff.
Yeah.
Here he buys a gun.
What, Jeff? Who?
My wife's cousin, the 50 cal.
Oh yeah.
I mean, buys a 50 caliber.
That's a collector.
Yeah, has it etched. And I told him I wouldn't do it unless you shoot it. So Happy here took him to the range.
I made him shoot it.
And made him shoot it.
First time shooting a firearm.
He cleaned it, put it away.
Is he hunting
Smith &
varmints
Wesson.
with that?
No, he wants to hang it on the wall in his office.
Smith & Wesson 500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, see, I got into activism in 2008, right at the beginning of 2008. And there was, I think it was 2010, there was a sheriff's race. Or was it 2008? I'd have to do the math. It's either 2008, 2010. There was a guy running for sheriff, and he wanted to get rid of the need for good cause. He was, in effect, going to make San Diego a shall-issue state, that he'd accept anything for good cause. And an employee of a major gun rights group, a major Second Amendment group, an employee, someone who made their living, made their career, I said, hey, why aren't we backing this guy? And he said, I got to tell you, this gun group, I'm not going to name the gun group or the guy, this particular gun organization, we don't really care about CCWs. It's not our thing. It's not going to win elections. Nobody cares. An employee of a major Second Amendment organization told me that in 2008, 2010, whenever that sheriff was getting elected. That represents, what old gun culture was. And this guy was really more of a hunter, and then maybe a shooter second. But that was as late as, like I said, 2008, 2010.
That almost seems where the NRA is stuck. They were stuck in firearms education and hunters, not so much collectors, but the only way to survival anymore for us as gun owners is through CCW, through self-defense. The hunting isn't in the Constitution. Yeah. You know, your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is in the Constitution.
And unfortunately, hunting's kind of dying too.
It is.
It really is. We occasionally get questions on hunting. You know, where do I get a hunting license or whatever? We occasionally get
rarely.
But mostly it's CCW. And when I started San Diego County Gun Owners, everywhere I went, every speech I gave, every community group I talked to, young, old, men, women, it didn't matter if they were political, if they were Second Amendment, if they were whatever. Everybody wanted to know about carrying. Every single person. Well, how do we get CCW? When are we going to finally get CCWs in San Diego? What about CCW? CCW. So I don't think that this gun culture. I think that there are cultures that have guns as a part of their culture. You know, I gave the example about the veterans. There are many others, and they're fine. There's absolutely no, but they don't represent. That's not gun culture anymore. Guns are so broad, and the people who own them are so broad and vast and varied. I don't know if there's gun culture anymore.
I think it's a very small community that really get into the culture of owning a gun.
And it defines who they are?
It defines who they are.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, it no more defines who they are than owning a microwave.
Exactly.
It's a tool that they use to defend themselves.
I think that's probably the best comment. It's a tool. That's all they want it for.
You know, most effective self-defense tool ever created.
That's exactly right. All right,
anyway, by the way, go to our Instagram, go to our Facebook page, read this article, check it out, show your friends.
Hey, you want to learn to fly?
I do.
Well, we can get you a pilot's license. Right. San Diego is one of the best places to get your license, because pilots can fly almost every day in San Diego. And San Diego Flight Training International is the best school to get your license. Give them a call, 858-569-1822. Learn to fly with SDFTI, 858-569-1822. Curtain call.
Yeah.
The latest news stories. Insightful perspectives. It's time for a curtain call.
All right. Got a curtain call. So this story that we're going to talk about today comes out of Chicago. There's not a video or anything audible that I was able to find. It's simply an article. But it's one of those things. It was a use of self-defense. A CCW holder defended themselves with their concealed carry firearm in Chicago.
In Chicago.
In Chicago, right? Imagine that crime in Chicago.
So you can't imagine. There's no crime.
It's a big gun town. Speaking of gun culture.
Right. The gun culture there. So in this story, and what's interesting is when I was doing a little bit of research, trying to look at more information on this story to see if there was any updates or anything, anything after or more additional information anyway, given more after the article that I had read. I was honestly a little surprised at everything that I saw. I found no further information on this particular instance. However, this is not all that uncommon, unfortunately. So what this is this is a story out of Chicago, and I'm just going to read it to you. This is this article is written May 14th, so this was just a few weeks ago was this case. So here's the title: 13-year-old Chicago girl was shot while trying to carjack a CCW holder. Okay, so looking at the ages, first of all, 13-year-olds. Think of the audacity. What were you doing at 13, Dave?
You can't even reach the pedals.
Right. So, the 13 years old. So what this is there was a 13-year-old girl and her 14-year-old boyfriend, and they decided to pair up together on a school day, not in school, but they were pairing up together to carjack a woman in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And this woman had her CCW. She had her firearm on her, and she had the ability and the presence of mind to pull it and use it when she needed it to defend against these carjackers who were trying to pull and physically remove her from her vehicle. So she did hit the 13-year-old girl in a true fashion. Her stand-up boyfriend
bailed.
Oh, he ducktail and he ran.
Burnt rubber.
Absolutely.
Wait, he was also a hijacker or a carjacker.
Correct. They were attempting to carjack.
So he was
this
another
woman.
bad guy. He was probably a teen as well.
14.
How
14.
big?
She was 13. He was 14.
How big could they be to drag a woman out of a car and take?
At 14, I was 5'8" and 185 pounds.
Never mind.
Imagine how big Russell's going to be.
Did she survive?
So she survived. So she did survive. So just think about this. You wake up that day and you go out about your day, you go to work, whatever you're doing. You never expect, and I'm sure you come across this a lot, Gary, with your cases and your people that you deal with. You wake up that day and you prepare yourself for just the day, right? And as a concealed carry holder, I sure hope that you have that firearm strapped to you on a daily, regular basis. And you hope you never have to use it. And you wake up that day, just thinking you're going to go to work, go about your normal activities, and here you go. So you get accosted in some way, your life is put at risk, and you have to draw and use it.
She must
right?
have
And
had,
imagine that
she must have had training, I would think.
The article does. I was hoping to find some more information.
Yeah.
There was not information on this. So we don't know. We don't know. But she took the shot and she did what she felt she needed to do. And of course there's backlash. This is Chicago, right? And this was a young girl, 13
Who
years
got
old.
arrested?
They were charged with theft.
The lady that shot her?
The 13, there's no charges that I could find. However, the 13 and the 14-year-old were charged with theft. They weren't even charged with carjacking. They were charged with simple theft. Was the charges that they received.
Why? They didn't get the car.
That might be part of it. That's a good Gary question.
Well, this is
I wonder
how-
if that
isn't
plays an
this how
element.
they keep-
Well,
No,
it was
attempted.
attempted theft.
It was attempted theft.
attempted.
Yeah,
Probably
attempted
attempted
theft.
carjackings.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't want to charge it.
Attempted
Yeah,
theft.
they didn't want to charge us, so that's
Well,
the way to tamp down.
I'm not a big fan of this whole look, we're gonna rehabilitate our criminals and make them fine, upstanding people.
Mm-hmm.
But at 13, maybe there's a shot. Maybe there's a chance.
I think we
Maybe.
go sit down with mom and dad.
I'm also a big fan of you're either an adult or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a kid, you're a kid. None of this they're 14 or whatever, but we're going to charge them like an adult. I don't like that. You're
many
either an
car-
adult
how-
or you're not an adult.
How many cars did you hijack when you were a kid?
Well, I don't want to get into it.
Those records are sealed.
Yeah.
You're going to do big kid things like attempting to take a car. I think you get to have the big kid consequences.
Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, yeah, I know.
It's pretty tragic. I'll tell you one thing. And back when I was pushing for CCWs before San Diego got CCWs, when we were promoting Not Me, I would say time and time again, I want to see far more stories about people defending their life with a legal gun, and far fewer stories of victims. So I think it's horrible and tragic that a 13 and a 14-year-old felt like this was the right thing to do in
Right.
their life. I think that's horrible and tragic. I think it's horrible and tragic anytime anyone gets shot. But I got to tell you, I'm very happy that there is a story. This is a story about an armed woman to be able to defend herself, rather than a story about an unarmed woman who got killed for her car.
Right.
So good for her.
Absolutely.
Totally. That's mind-boggling.
So what else do we know about the story?
So it just says, the only update that it gives is just that the investigation of the 13-year-old shooting did not merit much in the way of coverage from the mainstream media. And it's just that the established media wants to cover the story with a plow, so that this article is just kind of bringing to light the fact that it's not leaning the way that the media would want it to go. And so there's not been much coverage that I was able to find on it.
And one of the best parts of Concealed Carry Magazine, I see, is when they collate all of the defensive firearm use stories in one location.
Yeah.
And you can just read from all across the country the ability of people to defensively use their firearms. And those stories are buried because that's not the message that anti-gunners want to spread.
Right.
It is the news is kind of like, with gun rights in the news, it's like the opposite of baseball, right? A perfect baseball game is when nothing happens, right? It's a no-hitter, there's no errors. Like, that's a perfect game. Like, oh, everybody cheers when nothing happens in a baseball game, right? That's an old joke. But if nothing happens, the news doesn't cover it. So, it's kind of the same way. When someone defends themselves, or even prevents anything from happening at all, nothing happens. So they can't cover it. If it bleeds, it leads, right?
Right.
So
But you'll never know what percentage of defensive gun use is not reported.
Yeah.
Where
So there's a
somebody's
whole lot.
about to be robbed and they brandish, and that's the end of it. And that person, the robber runs away, and that person doesn't call the cops and goes home.
and that's what we're up against. Really,
Or the robber calls the cops and reports the victim.
Yeah, shot me.
No, not the shot, but just So there's a defensive display of a firearm. You can't do that in California, but there's a lot of people, quite a few people that do that will pull and use it to help deter a coming threat. Right there, you've broken California law.
Well, and remember the gentleman, I think it was in Texas, in the church, and protected the congregation.
it's a couple.
Yeah, and it turned out one of them belonged to like firearms legal protection. And I think when the media finds that out, they walk away from it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to even give firearms legal protection or another group like that any kind of airtime, because then they'll say, oh, geez, and everybody that buys a gun is going to go get protection.
There was a couple. There was the guy who made a headshot at like 20 yards. He was the head of the church security. Some literally crazy guy came in in Texas.
Right.
And then there was the other guy who lived close to a church, and he heard shooting and went out there with
this was the one that was actually
barefoot
in the church.
Yeah, barefoot with an AR. He barefoot with an AR and stopped the shooting.
There's your gun culture.
Yeah.
There's your gun culture.
But I forget. I'm so embarrassed. I can't remember the guy who made the shot. I remember he made it with a. It was
Iron Sights Glock in the mall.
No, well, there was that one too. But no, this guy he was a SIG that he used. Is his name Jack? Oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I can't remember his name. Anyway, that guy, I interviewed him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I interviewed him a couple years ago, right after it happened, and just nerves of steel. I mean, just absolutely.
Just like you.
Yeah, oh yeah, just like me.
You got nerves of steel.
I have nerves of electric shock.
What did you do to that poor guy that came into the restaurant?
Oh, I don't want to talk about that.
But did you not cause him to leave?
I didn't have to. I didn't.
You didn't touch him.
I didn't use a firearm, and I didn't touch
him.
him. But he never came back.
You growled.
Yeah, he's long gone.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
And I get an extra
Pancake.
I get a little extra pancake every time I go to the diner now.
But I'm just saying, if you could almost. I know you don't want to take credit for it, but that's like nerves of steel. That's like when you know what you're doing is right, and you don't hesitate.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a headshot at 20 yards.
But you could have if it needed to be.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Let's get some watermelon and we'll go practice on that.
Well, that's an amazing story. How'd you run across that story?
So, just people send me things, and this one
she
actually was
doesn't
sent to me. I don't do anything.
No.
No, my husband sent me that one. He thought it was kind of interesting. I'm like, I'll take a look at it. So, yeah.
I mean, it is hard when there's a kid involved.
Right. And that's really that. And that's kind of what the core of this is getting at, is there was some uproar in the public about, they weren't really so upset about the carjacking, but they were upset that this woman took a shot at a 13-year-old girl.
Well,
I know.
Tell the
I
13-year-old
know.
girl. And I would like to think that she was just there and the boy was the one trying to take the car. And she hit the girl instead of the boy.
In this day and age,
You never know.
There are some pretty nasty girls out there.
I'll tell you what,
we grew up with them.
It's a whole different world.
Remember when girls were mean?
Girls are never mean to me, Dave.
They pick on you when they like you, Dave.
Is that
Do you
what
know-
it is?
Yeah.
Do you know what the hardest thing about this thing here is too? Everyone's quick to complain about, it's the parents' fault in terms of raising
Hey.
them. And then, sorry, go ahead. But no, sometimes, some kids are really hard to control. And other times there's other influences that these kids are dealing with other than their parents. Or again, maybe their parents aren't even in there, or the guardianship's not there to begin with. So it's a very, very difficult, touchy situation that I completely understand why it's controversial at this time. So.
Well, this is a clear situation where the gun wasn't the problem; it was a solution,
Right.
And
Exactly.
it saved somebody's life.
And what are these kids going to do with a car?
It's a good question. That's a really good question.
I mean, Disneyland's just around the corner right now. Just
But I'm just saying, I can see theft, but a car? What are you going to do?
I don't know. I have a feeling these kids have such a horrible life and have had such a horrible upbringing in such a horrible area.
Or they have a privileged life and they think they can get away with anything. There's
Possibly.
that side of the coin too.
Is there a part of Chicago where that happens?
Chicago.
Gary, you're a defense attorney.
What
right?
would you do?
Have you seen? You've had a long career now. Have you seen crime getting worse and younger?
No, actually, it's been the opposite. I mean, when I started in 1992, I think San Diego had the most murders they've ever had in 1 year. It was 225, 226. We've been in decline for a long period of time, and it's just started to go back up.
But he was talking about kids.
The kids have actually, believe it or not, gotten better. Kid
Okay.
crime is down, and adult crime is climbing back up.
Okay, so don't invite him.
There you
go. Right?
I'm happy to do that. That's why I live in San Diego, not Chicago.
No, I'm saying we not invite him back because he didn't go with the practice. He didn't go with the role.
We invited him to get the real.
I didn't give you the answer you
He
wanted.
must be a lawyer instead of an attorney. That's the whole deal. We got to sure you write that down. Hey, if you want gear at an affordable price, check out Condor Outdoor. Whether you're a military professional, law enforcement officer, or simply an avid outdoorsman, Condor products are designed to be versatile, durable, and above all, reliable. So if you're looking to be the best in tactical gear, look no further than Condor Outdoor. Use code GOR for a 15% discount off the website, condoroutdoor.com. Use GOR for a 15% discount. Mike, you ever looked at their website?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Really?
Condor is really great.
Really?
Yeah, they're top notch for sure.
No kidding.
Very
Elections.
nice.
Do we have an election?
So we actually have an election event here. Re-elect Jim Miller, Cajon Valley School Board. You are invited to a San Diego Bay fundraiser. SDCGO endorsed candidate and founding board member Jim Miller. You know him as the Miller in the Miller versus Bonta assault weapons case, is having a fundraiser for his school board re-election campaign on June 14. This is not your everyday pinwheel sandwich and iced tea gig. You're invited onto a 100-foot yacht for a 2-hour bay cruise. This is going to actually be a fun fundraiser. We're going to put the fun in fundraiser. $250 per person, includes beverages and food on board. RSVP by donating. Okay, yeah. So if you want to go, it's $250 per person. You RSVP by donating $250 on the website millerforschoolboard.com. Miller for School Board, millerforschoolboard.com, and note it is for the cruise.
Where are you going?
What do you mean?
Where are you going in the boat?
It's a bay cruise.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what he said. June 14, bay cruise, 100-foot yacht.
You ever been on a 100-foot yacht?
I don't know. I've been on a yacht. I don't know how many feet it was.
It's pretty far.
Steve Cushman had a 100-foot yacht.
Mm.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Who's Steve Cushman?
He used to own a bunch of car dealerships.
Wow. Oh, yeah. I remember that name.
Yeah, the guy with the bad toupee.
No, I don't know about
Which
that.
one?
Trust me, it was the worst.
It was more of a...
had more money than God.
It was so bad it was a one pay.
He could shave your head and have a better toupee. That's how bad it was.
Okay, so I want to play you guys a clip here. It's because I'm getting to a point. We're a gun show, and we're San Diego County Gun Owners is a gun organization, and the name of the show is Gun Owners Radio. But this references COVID and everything that happened, and I think that for us to ignore, it'd be like if it were 1950 and we completely ignored World War II. You know, I think that COVID was such a big event, such a big political event, and I think there's some lessons to be learned. But this is Jordan Peterson, who I don't know a whole lot about. Do you know much about Jordan Peterson?
Jordan Peterson's a psychologist from Canada.
That's about as much as I know about him. And
he's also a commentator on culture.
That's a good way of putting it. He's a commentator on culture. I've heard some things. Seems like he's kind of a no nonsense kind of, hey, this is the way it is kind of thing. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar kind of guy. He's not really. He doesn't seem to be. He seems to be pretty down to earth. I guess what I'm saying. So this is a little segment that from of him. I want you to see if I can get it on the radio here. Oh, wait a minute.
Hold it. Technical difficulties above and beyond our control.
Hold on. So, and the reason I like this quote, I'm going to play it here again in just a second, is because it says the same thing that I've been saying about politicians and gun laws for a long time. Let's see if I can try this again.
When people read the history of Nazi Germany, they always think they're Schindler. They always think that they're the person who would have saved Anne Frank in the Netherlands. They never read history as a perpetrator. I wouldn't have done that. It's like, did you watch people during the pandemic? In Canada, 30% of my neighbors were thrilled that they had the opportunity to inform on the people around them. Thrilled. They would have worn those goddamn masks for the rest of their life if the payoff would have been they could feel morally superior and inform.
30%. I'm sure he's just guessing, and maybe that's hyperbole, but 30% of the people he knew in Canada would be happy to turn people in for violating, the pandemic, mandates. And of course, he compared it to Nazi Germany. I don't think anything can be compared to Nazi Germany, but that's not the point. He's making a point of, everybody in hindsight thinks that they'd be the hero. They'd do the right thing. And I got to tell you, we just had an extremely major event. An extremely major event. I would say the biggest event in our lifetime, in our country, in our culture, probably the world, since World War II. I think it was bigger than 9/11. If you look at the changes that were made, the changes in culture and people and laws and security and everything, I think it was bigger than Vietnam. I think it only rivals World War II. It's only second to World War II as far as a big event. But here's why it's pertinent to us as gun activists. I think we make a mistake when we just blame it on Sacramento. When we just blame it on even Gavin Newsom, like he's the only one. It's your neighbors, guys. It's your loved ones. It's sometimes your family. They're the ones that are voting for this stuff. We talked about that. We read the article from the LA Times, and we talked about culture a little bit, but that's why it's important. We can't just rely on lawsuits, for example. We can't just rely even on getting the right people elected. We have to change the culture. We have to be leaders. We have to change hearts and minds of the people who live right across the street from you. And the other thing is we have to get more involved. Because, like he said, all the people that, 1 in 3 people that he knew are happy to turn in, oh, hey, this person's not wearing a mask. Hey, this person, they're going outside. This person is running their business. I there was a business, they were doing hair and nails, and they were right across from a clinic in Santee during the pandemic. And the clinic turn them in because they were sneaking clients in so they could cut their hair, and the clinic turned them in right across the street for operating, for doing that horrible evil task of trying to make money so that they could put food on their table and pay their kids or feed their kids. So I think it's really important to truly embrace this and to understand it. You can't just blame Sacramento. You can't just blame Washington, D.C., and you can't just blame the few politicians that go up there because somebody voted for them. Somebody fundraised for them. Mm-hmm. And it's not the downtown crowd or the people, over there. It's your neighbors. It's the people you work with. It's sometimes your loved ones.
People you don't even know.
People you don't even know. But they live right in your town, right in your city. And, there are only so many things you can do in a lawsuit. If you're the plaintiff, if you're the attorney, or I should say if you're not the plaintiff and you're not the attorney, the only thing you can do is write a check so you can make sure that we have enough money to do those important lawsuits. Come election time, you can help a candidate by donating your dime and your time, but if you're not doing those things, in the off years, doing things like this morning, Gary, we were doing our Guns and Moses shooting social, bringing people in and saying, hey, welcome. Here's who we are. Mm-hmm. Let's teach you how to fire a gun. That stuff's important. Changing the culture is extremely important. Maybe I'm reading too much into what Jordan Peterson said, but it definitely hit me and felt very personal.
Well, there's one bright side that came out of COVID for gun rights organizations, and it's that COVID ripped the mask off the belief that government is both benevolent and intelligent, and that the things that they told us were absolute falsehoods and absolute lies, and forced people to comply with things that they shouldn't have had to comply with. I mean, I watched an interview by the head of the NIH, National Institute of Health, who said that nobody under 50 should have gotten the vaccine. There's no reason for anybody under 50 to get the vaccine. That's just craziness. We had this stuff down our throats.
And that 6-foot distance?
They made that up. Just made it up. Came out of nowhere. And so I think for gun rights organizations, the idea that somehow what the government is doing is benevolent and for the purpose of safety is now met with skepticism and not acceptance. And so I think that the government destroyed their credibility with COVID, and I think it'll wash over the things that they're trying to do in stripping gun owners of constitutional rights.
And I just don't think not just gun owners. I think just about everything. The border, taxes. I mean, you name it.
What it told you have to get involved. For years, I heard gun owners say, "Oh, don't worry. If the government goes
It'll
too
never
far,
happen.
yeah, or either it'll never happen, or if the government goes too far, I'm going to step up. I'm not going to go to a city council meeting tonight. I'm going to wait till the government goes too far, and then I'm going to step up. Okay, well, no, you didn't.
Well, they've gone too far. I mean, we're going to talk about SB2 in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
They went too far. That's the beginning of you existing in your house, cleaning your guns, and doing nothing else.
And don't you agree when people turn around and say, well, we have more guns than they have? If an Army truck rolls up into your neighborhood and 150 troops get out, they're going to take your guns. If they want your guns, they're going to take
it didn't even take that, Dave.
Well, that's true,
it
too.
took a cop and a cruiser.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
yeah.
it. That's all it took. It took your boss saying, hey, stay home.
Yeah.
It took your neighbor.
Yeah.
Your neighbor just said, "Hey, if you leave your house, I will report you."
And don't you think they were?
It took a government check. They cut a government check. They said, "Here, we're going to give you a government check." Okay, I'll sit here then.
Yeah.
I had to sneak out in the dark of night to go get a COVID cut because I was tired of looking like a Duck Dynasty guy.
Yeah, but you look good with long hair. I'd leave it. But so, no, you're absolutely.
I think it's something. I don't want to get too. It needs to sink in though. This thing is personal. It's people, and we have to change the culture along with the politics and along with the courtrooms.
But nobody got punished.
But everyone, myself, everybody in this room, everyone listening,
we comply.
You gotta really take a hard look at yourself. Like he said, everybody looks at World War II as if they're Schindler. Well, there was only one Schindler. There was one Schindler.
That's right.
And that's you weren't it.
And there's no repercussion. That's the thing that gets me crazy. It's like, oh well. Hey, if you're a gun owner,
I am,
and you need legal protection,
I do.
Even if you already have this protection,
I do.
Even if you do everything right, even if you're 100% justified, you should be prepared for the legal battle after your self-defense battle. That's why you need firearms legal protection. When you join, you get uncapped legal protection for self-defense for civil or criminal cases with a 24/7 hotline. Joining is real easy. Just go to thefirearmslegal.com and click on Become a Member. That's GOR for a discount code. Hey, enjoy the peace of mind of knowing that you are protected, even if you're ever involved in a self-defense incident. I can't tell you enough. Firearmslegal.com and use that GOR code for a discount.
Peace of mind. PIECE.
PIE. That's a song. Aretha Franklin did that.
Well, it's an album by Iron Maiden.
Right.
Okay, subscribe and win. Subscribe to our email list and win some swag. This week's winner is Eduardo Pina.
Excellent.
Okay, Eduardo, if you could, email us, prizes@gunownersradio.com, to claim your T-shirt or hat, whichever you'd like. If you want a T-shirt, though, be sure to tell us the size, and that will guarantee success, or just about. Okay, so real quick about the guns at the San Diego Gun Show. So we had a couple of gun shows. We had 3 gun shows, and they were in the city of San Diego, and Mara Elliott, the city attorney, is a anti-gun extremist, and she
poo-pooed it.
She prevented FFLs from really conducting business. All they could do was talk, which is, of course, their First Amendment right, but they couldn't conduct commerce, thanks to Mara Elliott and her extremism. Thankfully, the gun show has found a venue in Escondido. Escondido is a very fantastic city with a fantastic mayor, and they are allowing FFLs to basically do business. Of course, all applicable laws still. You have to go through a 10-day wait period. You have to go through a background check. All transfers have to go through an FFL, but at least you can conduct business.
You can touch it. You can hold it.
You can touch. You can hold it. You can put down a deposit. You can start the paperwork. You can do all that good stuff. So that is coming up the first weekend of June in Escondido at the Performing Arts Center, right next to City Hall. It's going to be a fantastic, great, good time.
What day is that?
June
1st and 2nd.
1st and 2nd.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yep,
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday. And so we have on the line John Lowe, who's going to talk a little bit about the gun show that's coming up on June 1st and 2nd. John, are you there?
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
Good, John. So tell us. So we get to conduct business at this gun show, right?
Yes, everything you had just said is accurate, and people will actually be able to come in and conduct Commerce. They'll actually be able to come in and purchase a gun. Of course, they'll have to go to the gun store and pick up the gun 10 days after their transaction. And it's been a long time coming, but we found a venue willing to allow the gun show. And as you mentioned, the mayor has been very supportive. We'll have close to 15,000 square feet, so the show will be bigger this time than the previous shows. We'll have the ballroom, we'll have the foyer, we will have guns, we will have ammo, we will have scope, large display of scopes, large display of magazines, almost anything and everything you want for mags. So this is going to be, I would say, approximately twice the size of the previous shows.
Fantastic. Great. And how much to get in?
$15, and people can actually get a $2 discount if they go over to azgunradio.com and just click on the show for Escondido. They'll see a place to enter their email, and they'll get a coupon.
That's awesome. And John, there's a bunch of different places they can get that $2 off, right? I think Gun Owners Radio,
yeah.
AZ, Gun. What is it again? Give the URL one more time. azgunradio.com. Okay.
Yes, and I think your organization is offering this discount as well as sending it out.
Yep.
Through your email system.
Yeah, take a look. Keep your eye on your inbox, but if you absolutely can't find it, then for sure you can find it on at azgunradio.com, and you'll get $2 off. Well, fantastic.
You're going to have some great symposiums also.
Yep, the symposium. We were talking about some of the speakers. We've been talking about it for a couple weeks. It's a fantastic deal, and the symposium is free. It's just a part of the gun show, so you're going to get to see all kinds of cool guest speakers, and you're going to, like John said, you're just going to have ammo, going to have guns. You can actually purchase guns, all kinds of accessories, and it's even bigger than the last 3 gun shows that we had. So come
absolutely.
on down.
And I don't mean to interrupt you there,
Sure.
but yes, we're actually sold out on vendor space. We're sold out, so we're looking at approximately double the size. Also, previous location, you had to pay for parking. In this case, in Escondido, plenty of free parking. So we invite everyone to come down to the Escondido Gun Show on June 1st and 2nd.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody go down and check it out. June 1st and June 2nd in Escondido at the Center for Performing Arts. 15,000 square feet.
Wow.
That's a lot of square feet. Buy tickets at gunownersradio.com/gunshow. Early bird pricing goes away on the 20th. That's for the shooting area day before the day before. What is that, 31st?
31st, correct.
Friday. Are you going to that?
I'll be there.
Are you bringing anything cool?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe. What are you going to bring? What do you look forward to shooting?
I'm not honest. I'm just going to bring everything I have. I did just Dros, and I'll have it in time to bring it on the 31st. I did decide to go ahead and pick up the newly released on the roster, the Smith & Wesson, the full size 2.0. And the reason I chose to go with that versus one of the other things is I like that it has an ambidextrous slide stop. If you look historically at the things that are on the roster, there's not a whole lot of things out there that are going to be left-handed shooter friendly, and that was one that had that left-sided slide stop. It does not have an ambi mag release. However, if you're left-handed, it's not easy. It's not difficult to drop that mag. However, that slide stop is a bit of an obstacle. So working with a lot of new shooters like I do, I thought it would be a good idea to get an option of something that I can bring in and be friendly for our left-handed shooters.
So let's talk about that real quick. So there are actually a few, just in the last couple of weeks, there are quite a few.
Yes.
Including Springfield Armory has 3 different versions of the XD that are now on the roster.
Yeah, the XD Elite is going to be and the Hellcat.
How'd these all get on the roster all of a sudden?
They removed the micro-stamping requirement.
Because of the lawsuit. The judge put an injunction on the microstamp requirement, and that was really the holdup.
Yeah, but before that, remember you could bring one on but take 3 off?
And they're not.
But wasn't that before the stamping?
They're not doing that, basically. So
now
you're getting all the ones that couldn't make it onto the roster because there was no such thing as a microstamp.
So is that changing the manufacturer's mindset on selling in California?
Well, it's not their mindset. They always wanted to sell in
Well, no,
California.
but they couldn't.
But they couldn't because they didn't have
So
guns.
now we're going to start seeing guns.
So now they're going. So what's happening now is because they don't have to comply with the microstamp requirement.
We can buy any gun we want.
What they do is they send the gun through. There's a whole process and procedure. They have to register it. They have to send it to a lab. But that microstamp, the fact that a microstamp doesn't exist, was keeping guns off. So the Springfield Armory, there are 2 or 3 different kinds of XD Elite that are on there. 3.8, 2 3.8 inch barrels, 1 4.5. The XDM Elite. There are. Let me read these real quick before we go to commercial. Carr has a new gun on there, a 9mm, 3.5 inch barrel. The CW 90G 93 and the CW 90G 93N, which I think those are 2 different colors. But before we go, 3 SIGs made it. The 320 XF9, the 320 X5 9, and the 365 California 9 all made it onto the roster.
Wow.
There are there's a lot of SIG nuts
Love
out
SIG.
there.
I do.
People that love SIGs. There are 3 brand new SIGs on the roster that just came on last week. So there you go. Do some shopping. Or come on down to the gun show. Maybe they'll have them at the gun show.
Absolutely. Hey, Not Me is for women, by women, designed to help women with training, purchasing a gun, and getting a concealed carry permit. You get it? For women. And guess what? Free. And if you're a woman, or you know a woman, or needs help, have her sign up and we will give her the help she needs. To sign up, go to notmesd.org. And did I mention it's free?
Okay, so we've talked a lot about SB2. We're not going to recap every piece of SB2, but we did talk earlier in the show about how there are many, many pieces of SB2. The biggest part was, of course, the expansion of the sensitive areas. But Gary is here to talk about some of the other landmines that we've found in SB2 in real-world scenarios, too.
As a lawyer or as an attorney?
I was functioning as both then, but I kept my license.
Oh, really? Oh, you have 2 licenses?
I'm just going to call you counselor.
That'll work. I like that.
I like that, too. That's way more
Litigator.
professional. Litigator. That's good, too.
There you go.
So talk about SB2, some of the things that have come up. And you actually have I'm not sure how much, what we can talk about, so I'm going to have you kind of guide me in that direction. But you have a lawsuit against a piece of SB2 that we're waiting on a decision for. But talk about some of the things that have happened with SB2.
Well, we could be here for 2 hours doing nothing but talking about SB2. But, let me hit a couple of highlights that people don't know about. So, the training requirement, initial training went to 16 hours, right?
Yes, yep.
If our sheriff thought otherwise, she could make it 24 hours, and she could require you to go to a community college class.
Yep.
That's post peace officer standards and training approved. But that's just for the more malicious jurisdictions.
But it is an option.
It is an option that it's not 16 hours and not done at a place of your choosing. It's a 24-hour class done at a place of their choosing.
Yeah.
That's just one of the minor things. You like psych evals?
Love them. I evaluate people's psych all the time.
Is that so? It's
but not on me.
If
on
your
others.
choice is a colonoscopy or psych eval,
for a lot of people,
which
there's
one
no
are you gonna
difference.
pick?
It's the same procedure. No, I actually hate it. In fact, there were some of the cities in Riverside before Bruin. Some of the cities in Riverside, and actually before Sheriff Bianco. Because Sheriff Bianco got elected and he started issuing. The previous sheriff, was dragging his feet and he wouldn't issue. So some of the cities up in Riverside started issuing, and they used a not Permitium. They used a different web-based application system, and they required a psych evaluation, and we fought that all over the place. I mean, I'm completely against the psych evaluation.
Well, that's the choice. On your initial, a sheriff or an issuing agency can choose to require you to do a psych eval at a place of their choosing, and you're paying for it. And you can also do them on renewals, but the renewal standard's a little higher. They have to jump a couple of hoops to use it for a renewal.
Wow! So it's just an option. It's not a requirement.
These are options, and I don't think it's happening in San Diego. Nobody's been required to go to the community college class for the initial, and as far as I know, nobody is doing or bulk psych evals, they might be using the renewal psych eval standard, and if they've got some real deep concerns, they may do that on initials.
And I actually went. I had a meeting with the police chief in Marietta. Is a ridiculous moron. And I met with him, and I said, "Hey, you guys are required." He was brand new at the time, and I said, "You guys are requiring this personality test." He goes, "No, it's a psych evaluation." And I said, "Yeah, but it's a personality test." And he said, "No, it's not a personality test. My doctor would argue with you." Well, I pointed out that it's the MMPI,
Minnesota Multi-Phase Inventory.
Minnesota Multi-Phase Personality Inventory. I said it's in the name. It's in the name there, Chief Genius. And he got all hurt and started crying, I think. That's the way I remember it in my head. But he refused to even admit that it was a personality test. So when they call it a psych evaluation, it's not testing to see if you're crazy or not. That's not what the MMPI does. It checks to see how you handle stress and pressure. And they a lot of places use it for firefighters, first responders, firefighters and cops to see, hey, does this person have the right personality to be a first responder? Well, there's no constitutional. I don't know. You're the attorney. Is there a constitutional requirement that I have the same personality as a firefighter in order to keep and bear arms?
I can just about guarantee you don't have the same personality as a first responder.
I don't think I do. I don't have the same physicality
either. There isn't.
You'll run into the fire.
I'm usually running away because I just said it.
So here's where we've hit a big issue, and that is something that no one expected, and something that they wrote in there, that a person who is not a prohibited person from carrying firearms, a person that can have a firearm in their home, they are capable of owning, buying, and possessing in their home firearms in California, can be prohibited as CCW for 5 years. And this was the scenario that occurred. My client was arrested and on a road rage incident. And at the same time he was arrested for the road rage incident, a police officer sent a judge a gun violence emergency protective order request. That's just an affidavit. So all that was required on that one-page affidavit filed by the police officer was that these two guys told me that this guy pointed a gun at them from his car.
Right, because I don't know, maybe I don't want to ruin your story, but he was actually protecting himself from a road rage.
Correct.
Yeah, he wasn't road raging.
But then the people that he was protecting himself from chased him and called 911.
Right.
And then described the gun he had his car that he brandished in order to stop them from throwing bottles at his car.
Yeah, so they threw a bottle at his car hard, it shattered, and he actually thought he was being shot at, right?
And he brandished at that point and drove off.
Right.
So and the other two people said, "Hey, he pointed a gun at me," and that's what the cops went with. So the judge looked at this affidavit, and all it says is, "These two guys told me this."
Yeah.
And that's what they're signing in the affidavit. The affidavit is not that what's being said is true, just that they told me this. And so the judge signed a gun violence emergency protective order, and the cops were so uninterested in this gun violence emergency protective order that they sent him home when he bailed out of jail.
Yeah,
and he went home, got his guns, and had to turn them in within 24 hours to a licensed gun dealer for storage.
He was so dangerous that the cops said, "All right, well, see you later. Have a nice day.
Go home, get all your guns, collect them up, and you take them and pay for storage with an FFL."
One of the things that we haven't really talked about on the radio is, of course, these gun violence restraining order. There certainly is process, but it's not due process.
Correct.
And I don't think we've really talked about, that putting those three letters "due" in front of process changes it completely. So yeah, there's a process. There's some paperwork. It goes in front of a judge. But the due part, how would you describe that? The due process means that it has to, the type of, it has to be at a level that warrants taking your rights away.
Well, you have to understand, it wasn't designed to provide you with due process at that stage of the process. Your process is coming 3 weeks later when you get a hearing on the gun violence restraining order. Now you can call witnesses. Now you can confront the accusations that are being made against you. There's no process to do that when you're handed an affidavit that's just been signed by a judge and a court order, and you leave jail and get told to come to court 3 weeks later.
Right.
So you don't have any process.
A simple accusation from people who were attacking him, and he lost all his guns.
Correct.
Which then led to, keep going, I'm sorry.
Well, it got more scary for him because the DA actually filed on that case. The DA has a very narrow window to file on cases, generally. They could extend it, but they usually decide not to or file very quickly. And so they chose to file, and this guy was looking at, 15, 16 years in jail. Anytime that you have a gun crime, the numbers run up really quickly in California because of the gun enhancements. Well, I managed to get the DA to dismiss the criminal charges before we got to preliminary hearing. We were able to expose the fact that these people just made this up. And so the DA dismissed it.
Is it fair to say that it got a second look because it was a CCW holder in a defensive gun use situation?
Well, that's probably the only reason it got a second look.
Yeah.
If he had been illegally carrying a gun, you're already starting out bad. And I've got one of those cases right now where you get squeezed on a legitimate defensive firearm use because you're using a gun that you're not entitled to carry.
But 2 years ago, before the DA put this in process, because of the work that you and I did, it would not have gotten that second look.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And the DA dismissed it.
So thank you, Gary. Thank you for your hard work on that. In all seriousness, you did an amazing job, and then it benefited you.
You've also got to credit, both you and Summer. I mean, Summer stepped and took a look at it, and she did the right thing on that and said, "I'm going to assign my special operations unit to take a look at CCW cases."
Right. So we got a second look, drop the charges. So now let me just recap. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was attacked, or threatened by two guys. They called the cops on him. By the way, lesson learned: be the first one to call 911. Don't let them be the first one to call 911. Cops arrested him.
Cops arrested him. In fact, they hot stopped him, took him down at gunpoint.
Yeah, okay. And then, GVRO issued, and then DA said, you know what, we're not even touching this thing.
Remember, difference, GVEPO, Gun Violence Emergency Protective Order, was issued.
Gotcha,
because the GVTRO can't be issued until after a hearing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
So
and that's where we're at in the story.
Deal.
Then what?
So after the criminal case went down, the city attorney of the jurisdiction that the cops were in, they said, we're going to dismiss the GVEPO. So now we dismiss the GVEPO and the criminal case is gone. We go to get back his CCW from the sheriff, and the sheriff came within 24 hours and snatched his CCW from him within, I think, 48 hours of him being arrested. They get notification, and they had a sheriff at his doorstep grabbing his CCW.
Because if there's a protective order against you don't get a permit.
So we're going to get it back, and the sheriff was great, a sergeant in licensing. He was a really nice guy, and he was really apologetic. And he said, "I'm sorry, I took this license from you in November of 2023. SB2 came into effect in January of 2024. It's now March of 2024. I can't give it back to you because SB2 says if you've ever had a gun violence emergency protective order issued against you, you can't have a CCW for 5 years until it goes away."
So
that's in SB2.
No, an accusation, no due process.
They
took his guns, completely dismissed it, said, hey, you know what? This never should have even happened.
But you still can't have your
But he still can't have his CCW back. And then it's completely out of the sheriff's hands.
What's the next step?
Well,
I'll give you that at the next segment.
Yeah.
What do you think? You're on a radio show?
little cliffhanger there.
I'll forget.
That's what they call a cliffhanger in the industry.
You need to write that down because you'll forget too. I know how you are.
I don't forget.
There's more to the story.
I like that. The lawyer in him is going to do that. Hey, do you belong to an association, a club, or maybe an organization wrestling with your marketing? Well, most organizations waste a lot of money on marketing because it's so tough managing everything. Website, social media, e-commerce, email, and the list goes on. Leave frustrations behind with Sage Tree's fractional marketing department services. They take care of everything: planning, development, advertising, and more. Getting started is real easy. Visit sagetree.com and click on the Schedule an Appointment button. That's sagetree.com and click on that Schedule an Appointment button now.
Okay, so your client was arrested. There was a protective order against him. The DA took a look at the case and said, nope, this is clearly a CCW holder who did a defensive gun use, and it's all in the up and up. We're not going to touch this. So you went to they took the protective order off, went to the sheriff, said, hey, sheriff, in licensing, he needs a CCW back. This is all totally clear. And they said, nope, SB2, state law says we can't do it.
Not for 5 years.
This new state law that just passed says that we can't give you your CCW back for 5 years. And, that led to us, you and I, trying to meet with the assistant sheriff.
Yeah, right.
And talk. And, you have to understand from their perspective, they don't get to choose the laws that they want to enforce. They were given an SB2. They were given that section of the law. And they said, look, we don't have a choice here. And I understood their position. I felt it was wrong. Their law is wrong. And, my client was basically the tip of the spear for how wrong this was. As far as I knew, this hadn't gone forward anywhere else in the state. One thing that SB2 did give you is that when sheriffs deny you a license, you have the ability to take it into court under a writ of mandate. There's an entire section in SB2 that describes the process that allows you to go into court and challenge the sheriff's decision. So when they denied him in March, within a week, I was up at the court filing a request for that hearing. We had that hearing about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And it was unusual.
So you went to court. Can you talk a little bit about the lead up? Because it was a little bit of a kind of a who's on first. Wasn't it when you were trying to get it?
Well, remember, when you're trying to do something that's never been done before, because this procedure just came through on the first of the year, so we showed up at the court and we went to, well, where do we go? Well, go over here. And then we go to the business office and try to file there in the civil department. Like, well, that's not our form. Well, yeah, it's not your form. The state just made it up. So we finally got it where they said, okay, we're going to do it here. And where did we wind up? We wound up in the mental health department.
What?
Because that department was doing the gun restorations for people that had previously had 5150s or involuntary holds.
Right.
You have the ability, if you get a 72-hour informal hold, it's called the Penal Code 5150 for mental health purposes.
So they had the form.
You lose your gun rights. They had the form, so we managed to get in there with the form. The other thing that's really unusual about this is the legislation made the district attorney the responding party. Now, I have no idea why, because the district attorney has absolutely nothing to do with licensing.
Yeah.
They're not the lawyer for the sheriff.
No.
Yeah.
He had the county council.
It should have been county council. It should have been the sheriff's lawyers. But the legislation specifically made the DA the responder. And when I discussed this with the DA, my guess behind that was that the sheriff had a better lobbyist than the DA had. And they wanted nothing to do with it.
I'm
so
not
they
going to do
jammed
it.
it down
Give
the
it to the
DA's
DA.
And that's what happened. So we show up in court with a new form. We have to file motions that have never been filed before, create them and file them, with the DA that doesn't know why they're there, because this doesn't really involve them.
Right.
It's just a licensing issue. And we had an hour and a half hearing. I was really surprised at how long this took. And the judge was very receptive to our arguments. Primary argument is that it completely lacks due process. Right. You can't take a property right, a constitutional right from somebody without giving them some form of constitutional due process.
First.
And this GVEPO gave no process. It took the words of two liars and then stripped them of a constitutional right. And that was our first argument. We also had a lot of Second Amendment arguments that were rooted in the Second Amendment litigation that's going on, that there was no historical analog to stripping somebody on the basis of a GVEPO.
Let's talk about that for just a second, just in layman term. So Bruin passed,
right,
and Justice Thomas wrote the decision, and it boiled down to text, history, and tradition.
Correct.
So what that means is this is a gun law. They're taking guns away.
Right.
So that's not in the text of the Second Amendment.
Right.
There's no tradition of doing that, but you're talking about the history part. When you said there's no analog,
right?
Basically, back in 1791, there was no law that was anything like this, to where an accusation got your guns taken away, and then you couldn't carry and you couldn't bear arms for 5 years.
I mean,
nothing like that.
The Attorney General is going to areas like sureties. You had to post a surety in order to guarantee your gun rights.
What's an surety?
You had to post a bond in order to, if you did something wrong, in order to keep your gun rights, you had to post a bond. And then
that was part of the defense? Or part of
no,
their,
that was not part of ours, but it's the historical analogs that they're really trying to pull out.
Did the DA say that?
They did not, because we didn't get into the Second Amendment. I didn't want to make this a Second Amendment argument. I thought we were much cleaner and going to win on the due process argument.
Gotcha.
So I submitted on my papers rather than put all of my argument, because we were also arguing, besides Second Amendment, we were arguing ex post facto. Basically,
What's
he
that?
lost his license in November. The law comes along in January, and you're applying that law to strip his license from him. We argued ex post, but I made that on paper. All of the focus was due process, because that was the strongest argument. The judge listened and then did something that was also surprising. You have to understand how the courts work. Superior Court's the first stop. That's a trial judge. And then after a Superior Court decision, a guilty verdict or a judge's decision, then you go to the District Court of Appeal. And then after that's California Supreme Court. It's rare that a Superior Court judge writes a written opinion. Well, she didn't give us a ruling that day. She said, I'm writing a written opinion on this, come back in 4 weeks.
What does that indicate? Why is that important?
Why is that important?
From my read on the case, I'm optimistic that she may be going our way. It's just so clear, but she wants to be clear and understands that Rob Bonta is going to challenge this.
I was going to say, not only is he going to challenge it, but the sheriff needs to know, like, hey, we want to see this in writing so that our A is C.
The sheriff needs direction, and not just on the basis of this case. The good thing about this case is the precedent can kind of be used, well, at least throughout our county anyway, as to how this judge resolved this case. So I'm optimistic she's going our way with this, and she just wants to write it so it's kind of bulletproof, but she knows it's going to be appealed. If I lose, we're appealing.
Well, of course.
And if we win, they're appealing.
You really think they'll appeal? They
Yes,
will appeal?
I do.
But it's the DA, right?
No, the DA's done. It's going to go back to the AG after that.
Interesting. So they'll appeal.
I can almost guarantee you Bonta's going to appeal any loss of any piece of SB2.
Wow. How do you
I just
feel
think
about
it's
that?
coming.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, that's their job.
And you knew it was coming. And then if that doesn't go, then you'll go to the next step.
Right. But I'm optimistic we're going to win this. There's a line in the law that appeals are for losers. Both actually and
really?
physically, because you can't appeal unless you lose.
Right.
And then your chances of winning on appeal are, 85?
So let me ask you this.
Losing is 85%.
So if you win on the appeal,
if I win this case, they're the people appealing.
and could that change SB2's writing?
It'll change that small segment of SB2. I mean, I'm in a niche area.
Yeah, well,
for people that had issued CCWs, had them taken away because of a GVEPO, and now want them back and can't get them.
yeah. So you're like you said, you're the point of the spear.
Yeah, this will be
spear.
I'll get another one of these 10 years from now. But right now
Yeah.
that's the only one. But there's a lot of things like this. There was a companion case filed with mine in conjunction with an attorney in town called Colin Rudolph. He had a temporary restraining order, emergency protective order. Basically, some guy filed a TRO against his ex-girlfriend, and in retribution, the ex-girlfriend filed a TRO against him.
Yeah.
Well, her TRO was dismissed at the first appearance in court, but now the same thing is happening to him. He had a TRO issued against him, and now he can't get a CCW.
These restraining orders, especially the gun-related, I'm seeing way too much. They're being used as retribution. They're being used vindictively.
Well, sure.
And the close. I mean, restraining, like old-fashioned restraining orders. I know that, during a divorce, it was pretty common that both issued a restraining order or whatever, and that was about as
Worthless as.
well. No, it's just that was about as bad as I saw people use it. But once the gun violence restraining orders came out, once the gun-related restraining orders came out, it seems like people are just abusing the heck out of this.
Well, we've talked about this repeatedly, that it's not just the individuals that are abusing it. The cops seem to be abusing it and running GVEPOs as a matter of course. They're like add-ons onto their arrest, because what do they get at that point? Sometimes they get into the safe. Sometimes they get into your house. Mm-hmm. And so guns that have nothing to do at all with the criminal conduct are now being looked at. And I've got another case like that where they went into a guy's safe and they found
a firearm,
an AR
or something. Yeah.
But here's the interesting point: the AR was only hooked on the rear detent pin. So if it was detached, it wouldn't be an AR. If both pins were out of the AR, it wouldn't be an AR. If both pins were in, it would be an AR. What if it only one pin is in and it's broken open?
So real quick on that, the reason they're doing that, and this is a huge problem too, that comes from Mara Elliott. After the gun violence restraining orders were invented and passed and turned into law, she actually got like $1 million grant from Sacramento. Would they actually Hemmerling, the idiot who ran for sheriff that we vehemently opposed, would go to these different departments and municipalities and pitch these gun violence restraining orders as standard operating procedure. And that's why this is happening. They were pitched to the voters as, hey, when there is absolutely nothing else, man, this is our safety net. When there's no law out there that'll stop a horrible killer from committing horrible acts of violence, check it out. We're going to fix it with this gun violence restraining order. Once they were passed, now they're just using it as standard operating procedure no matter what. There is no reason that the cops and that city attorney should have filed a gun violence or any kind of protective order against your client.
No.
Nothing. There's nothing. No reason.
They had his CCW gun that was on his license. They had that in evidence. He wasn't getting that back until the conclusion of his criminal case, if ever. He has it back now, by the way. We got that gun back. And he got all his other guns back. So he's not a prohibited person in California, but he's got to wait 5 years for a CCW because of SB2.
Well, until you win.
Not if you have
until you win.
To do with it.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for everything you do, man. You're an absolute pit bull and a gentleman and a fine judge of.
Are you on a billboard?
I'm not
on a billboard.
But I've
all the great ones are on billboards.
I've been on wanted posters before.
Oh, well, that's totally different. Hey. Have you been keeping your guns clean and lubricated the way you should? I guess not. But if you've been procrastinating because cleaning your gun with traditional products is smelly and it's a pain, then you should try Seal One. Seal One is an all-in-one product that cleans, lubricates, and protects your firearms. Clean your guns faster, easier, and safer with Seal One. No more smelling like gas. Enjoy the confidence and peace of mind knowing your guns are protected with the best. Buy some now at Seal One. And hey, Mike will never wash his guns in the sink again because he uses Seal One.
That's exactly where I use my Seal One. So go to seal1.com. Seal One, sponsor of our absolute best segment.
Oh, is he the sponsor?
Yeah. Stump, my nephew, sponsored by Seal One.
All right.
So everybody go out and get some Seal One. Seal One's actually really great stuff. They're a relatively, well, they've been on and off sponsors for a while. They've been friends for a long time. But let's show them some love and some support. Go out and get some Seal One.
Your guns smell great when you use Seal One.
Yeah, right?
That's right.
It smells like kind of minty.
Do you wash your guns in the sink?
I don't, but I do put Seal One on them.
He puts them in the sink.
I thought they use the dishwasher.
No. He hand does it. He's very
I goop them all up in Seal One, and I scrub them, and then I just rinse them off in the sink. Works like a charm. Okay, Stump My Nephew, our very favorite segment, sponsored by Seal One. Found out years ago that my nephew, who we had in the studio last week.
Wasn't that great?
That was great.
I mean, Brendan really, really missed out by now.
That's right.
It was fabulous.
Brendan's your biggest fan, Sam, and he wanted to meet you.
He's totally bummed.
Yeah, you there, Sam?
Yeah, how are you guys?
Good. Okay, so if you send in a question and we ask Sam, we'll give you a hat or shirt. If you stump him, then you're going to get a really cool prize, which is probably a couple of tickets to Gun Prom, which is, of course, October. I think it's October 12th. 16th? October 12th? 16th? Anyway, go to gunprom.com for details. But without further ado, okay, Gary, attorney extraordinaire, is going to ask the question, Sam.
What cartridge?
Mike from Mira Mesa asks.
Mike from Mira Mesa asks, what cartridge was used for the world's longest sniper kill?
Mark from Mira Mesa. Where is Mira Mesa?
That's right here in beautiful San Diego.
Yeah, right out of El Cajon.
It's where Buca de Beppo is.
Oh, there you go.
I'll pretend I know what that is.
Right off the 15.
Right off the 15. Okay. That gives me a better idea. Mike from Mira Mesa, thanks for writing in. What cartridge was used for the, was it the longest sniper shot?
The world's longest sniper kill.
Okay, world's longest sniper kill. That is actually an important distinction to make because people have shot at non-living targets much farther than this. But for a long time, several years, the record for the longest confirmed sniper kill was held by a Canadian sniper with a Macmillan TAC-50 and 50 BMG. But if I recall correctly, there was a shot just a few years ago that superseded that using a 416 Barrett, which is essentially a 50 BMG necked down to 416 caliber for a finer ballistic profile, better ballistic coefficient, and therefore better downrange energy retention. Is that correct?
Okay, so by the way, extremely impressed that you knew that somebody beat the Canadian. That was kind of the trick in this question, was that someone very recently beat the Canadian shot. You're absolutely right. Do you know who did it or where it was? Which war it was in?
I'm pretty sure it was an American, but in which sand and dirt colored country, I couldn't tell you for sure. I'm guessing Afghanistan because it anecdotally tends to have longer engagement distances, but that's just a guess.
Wasn't part of the question, so we're not going to count it against you. But it was actually the Ukrainian war. It was a Ukrainian sniper named Vyacheslav Kovalevsky, right?
I don't have it in front of me, but I'm guessing that's Vyacheslav
Kowalski.
I think he was Irish. He made the shot from a distance of 3,800 meters, about 2.36 miles, using a rifle known as Horizon's Lord. This surpasses the previous record held by a Canadian sniper, just like you said, et cetera, et cetera. The record-setting shot reportedly took about 9 seconds for the bullet to reach its target. That is a lifetime. 9 seconds. Well, for the guy on the other end of the bullet, it was literally a lifetime. The cartridge paired a 14.5 millimeter casing with a 50 caliber bullet.
Okay. So, yeah, as soon as you said Ukrainian, I began to second guess myself because they would not have access to 416s. But you say it's a 14.5 Wildcat necked down to 50?
14.5 casing necked down to 50 cal, 12.7 millimeters.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I had no idea.
So I'm going to give him half credit on that because he was right on the 50 caliber projectile, wrong on the casing.
Well, no, I didn't say it was a 50 caliber projectile. I said that the previous longest one was using a 50 BMG round.
I thought you said what you said it was really? So you got it totally
BMG.
wrong. All right.
Well, I had guessed that it was superseded using a 416 Barrett.
Oh, that's right, you did. Okay.
You
Well,
got the Canadian sniper,
I remember,
yeah.
I could have sworn I read that somewhere. I don't know what I was thinking of.
This just happened, by the way. November of 2023 is when Vyacheslav Kovalevsky, that's when he made his kill. 9 seconds it took. 9 seconds. I can't imagine how much that thing dropped in 9 seconds. It must have been meters. It probably dropped meters in 9 seconds.
And it could have went to the left or the right as well.
And it could have gone to the left or the right. All right.
Yeah, easily.
Didn't get it right, but man, you came so close and nailed the previous record and exactly what he was using, which was an excellent job.
Now, to be fair, I looked it up. We did ask him that previous thing back in November of 2020. So to have a memory of that, though, is still pretty impressive.
What about the Canadian?
Yeah, and we asked him the cartridge as well. So, good job, Sam. Good
How
memory.
did you know that?
I looked at over the commercial. I looked at Rich. I was like, I swear we asked this question. He's like, well, this is a brand new one, so I'm assuming we haven't. I looked it up on my email records, and sure enough, November 2020, we asked him about the cartridge.
You keep your emails that long?
No.
I don't.
How is he that organized?
I thought Alicia was good.
This guy's amazing. All right, Sam, fairly good job, even though you missed this one. That's okay.
Well, I do have one more thing, and
Go
it's
ahead.
not to that question.
All right.
This actually is regarding the previous week's question when I was there in the studio, which, by the way, loved it. I always love recording in the studio. Well, it's live. Presenting in the studio,
Yeah.
it's just so much more fun.
We enjoyed having you. We'll see you again, of course, when you come out for gun prom. So keep going.
Hope so. So the last week's question had to do with the Fedorov Avtomat, which was it's considered by some to be the first true assault rifle, though there isn't really universal consensus on that. And the question involved manufacturing in Germany, and I hadn't heard of that, and Alicia pointed that out, and so I said I would look it up during the intervening week. I did. And this is not to say it never happened, but I could find no record of, in a cursory search, I could find no record of the Fedorov having been manufactured in Germany. So if it was, that seems unlikely to me, but if the person whose name escapes me at the moment, who wrote in the question last week has some other information to that end, I'd be very interested to see it. Okay. Because the Russian Empire and the German Empire were at war during, the Russian Empire, then the Soviet Union, were at war during the time the Fedorov was manufactured. And then when the Russian Empire was overthrown and the Mensheviks, then the Bolsheviks, took power in 1917 and 1918, they exited the war, but would not be contracting for arms manufacture.
So you're saying you got the question right, and you think that the answer provided, you're not finding any evidence that it was correct.
No, but again, I'm prepared to be wrong.
You think maybe he put it together a little too quick and got it wrong because he was Russian. Huh?
Uh-huh.
Huh?
No, I think a possible point of confusion is that Oh, come on.
Hey, that's only Brendan. That wasn't us. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Brendan.
All right. Well, cool.
A possible
go ahead.
point of confusion there might be that the other contender, the more widely recognized one, the Sturmgewehr, was of German design and manufacture. So he might have gotten the two mixed up.
Well, I mean, it would be weird that one of those countries would be manufacturing their guns in the other country. They didn't exactly like each other. So it would be kind of weird. I mean, it's not unheard of, I guess, but it'd be very strange.
Well, they were at war. The handful of Fedorovs that saw combat in World War I would have been used against the Germans.
Yeah, they weren't real fond of each other. Something about commies and socialists, they never really get along all that well.
I don't know why.
I know, they're like almost the same.
When other people's money's gone, things get tight.
Can't we all be friends?
Yeah, why can't we be friends? All right, Sam. Thanks, man. Oh, excuse me.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for watching this episode from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns and the Second Amendment. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just do a search for Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Don't forget to support our sponsors. Click on the links in the show notes and support the businesses that support your Second Amendment rights. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.